capping the Sierra off with a visit to the Mount Rose region. Bit snowy and early, 9,000 feet plus or so. Go down to 6,000 though again. Come back up, maybe over Rose itself. Maybe I'll see that it's too snowy up there. At least for my lightweight comfort level at the moment. No mountaineering equipment, in other words. Or otherwise climb something near Mount Rose. Got a few peaks ahead under 10,000 feet later today. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to have cold and wet feet by the end of this eve. But I may get lucky. It's a lodgepole forest here with western white pines, also pretty common. A new element coming in. Well, we saw him earlier. I'm not sure we talked about him though. But a newer element coming into the northwest, replacing our friend just plain old white pines, an endangered species these days, as the higher mountain representative of that group here. In Washoe County, finally. Pinus contorta. It's almost like a huge pinion. 2 needles. Preferring overall drier sites. These barren sandy openings that melt out earlier. Lakes dry ridge tops as well. See, it's very early for the aspens here too. Nothing green there yet. It is lush and Rockies-esque, this part of the Carson range. A marsh marigold's coming up, Caltha. Certainly more reminiscent of the Rockies and Sierra than of Nevada as a whole. Definitely gonna have wet feet by the end of today, but that's okay, I guess. More sheltered faces looking very snowy. More exposed ones, not so much. I'll have to plan the route carefully around the worst of the snow. Going up right away here, right now though. We'll get a sense of things up near 10,000 feet either way. These evergreen ground manzanitas of these parts, low enough to be sheltered in snow and truly cold temperatures, and then ready to go as soon as the moment snow starts melting off. And probably have to undergo prolonged period of dormancy starting later in the season sometime to cope with the lack of precipitation in the summer in a Mediterranean climate. It snows again and they're ready to roll when the snow melts off immediately. To end up being the third most Rockies-like place in Nevada. Rockies are my baseline, so that's baseline against which I compare so many things, but especially upper montane floras, just landscapes overall for that matter. The rubies probably the most Rockies-esque range in the Nevada. The snakes are also quite Rockies-esque, leaving us with the Mount Rose region. Might be missing something. Yet to visit some really interesting places in Humboldt, for example, some of which I hope to accomplish this season a little bit later on. The June snow and snow melt. Hard to come by in vast swaths of Nevada. South face is looking rocky and bare. It's just a battle with these norths for the time being. Dark clouds into Nevada. It's early June. Heading out towards those clouds in the coming days. I think cooler temps will continue to prevail into next week. So, good times for me crossing some of those lower dry areas, especially the Humboldt Sink, for example. Snow is forcing me down to those south sides either way. It's truly significant in some parts. And higher up it's a lot worse than this. Quite a contrast between our dry southern sands, those Mesic north-facing forests. Go up those rock slopes and gain the ridge either way. Go along the Rose Knob series, if possible. Imagine the ridge top itself is rather dried out. Still very early here. Tons of veratrum popping up. Lots of marsh marigolds too, Caltha. Not marigolds, but indeed of the marshes. Got true buttercups as well. Calthas are more like anemones. All in the buttercup family. The intended way, heavily snowed over. Not worth doing. Even though these areas are higher ahead, they're a lot drier. So this is the reroute. Miraculously, these higher slopes and ridges seem to be snow-free, whereas the ridges that are lower across the way are all snowed in. Curious what the north faces look like up here. Not much going on up here besides phlox, gooseberries, lupins, and asters all leafing up, some grasses. Thing in flower I've seen up in this vicinity, 9,500 to 10,000 feet, phlox. Detour up Mount Relay. Fairly dry peak in terms of its south face. It's all white pines up here. Above 10,000 now. Nearly at the summit. There's a relay station. That country beyond looks pretty dry compared to here. Incredible. Mount Rose itself, just a little bit aloof from Tahoe. Super dried out. It's much wetter along Tahoe, except below 9,000 feet out there where we were previously. Good. I'm gonna descend down there, climb up back, somewhere out there, come back through this area. Excellent views up here, no doubt about that. Coming down this ridge of Relay now. It's West Ridge. All the way down to the California border. And back up again to the Nevada high country. Most of the trees looking pretty sorry here. Here's a very sorry looking Jeffrey. Bleached, dwarven, like the white pines around it. These Jeffreys were thriving down at 8,000 feet or so. Lower. Trying to make it up here around 10. Doesn't look like a great strategy for them. Would like to have been further down by this hour. It is chilly up here. Just go down a couple thousand feet nonetheless with the headlamp, studying the ground. Wouldn't want to miss anything exciting on this trailless ridge walk across the elevations. At a problem spot right before nightfall, but good thing there's just enough light left. The rest looks okay. Still dropping to the valley below. Cross a couple valleys over and head back up. Still a decent amount of snow. Below 8,000 feet up here. North faces only, strictly no. Trudging through an old burn for a bit now. It's given rise to many dense patches of manzanita. Somewhat problematic to move through. But they crowd out everything else as well. Just one big patch of Arctostaphylos. Significant water produced from those snows above. It's a junction of two forks of Gray Creek is what this is called, ahead. That's right at the California border. We are at the California border. I'm gonna parallel the border, the next drainage north. Follow that one back up into the high country. Got a seep here. Trudging through burnt out areas. Past half day now. It's been difficult and slow between the loose, steep earth and the chaparral to fight through. Lots of Arctostaphylos, ribes, and frangula. Rhamnaceae. But on this north face, there's unburnt Jeffrey forest. Surely some ABs around as well. Dropping into a second low drainage. The first one was okay. It's still early spring out here. I found a few things in the first drainage. Second drainage is a little lower. Still not finding any flowering Kikila. Might remain for another year at this point. Unless I strike Eureka towards the bottom of this drop. Circocarps too. Part of the chaparral. Not chaparral here though. Pleasant change for today. Rather cloudy day, and I'm not complaining. So when it's sunny and exposed at 6,500 feet, it's quite warm. Most of the year, never mind early June. Very cool early June so far though. Back into the chaparral for now. Looks more like sagebrushy slopes ahead. The chaparral replaces the burnt fir and Jeffrey forests in these parts. It's several years old. Sagebrush is not something I was previously seeing. The chaparral is so choked in many spots that water limits itself, and large parts of it are not doing so well. These north-facing ribes here are doing pretty well. These gooseberries. On the south faces, you get the dense frangula and manzanita, and it chokes so thickly that individuals, and really the whole, are choked out themselves. Should have showed you that, I guess, but it was so monotonous and a bit dreadful to get through that I was just focused on the task at hand. There it is, thick chaparral. Amazing, a couple individuals here and there that survive continue to thrive after the mass death event. There's a couple other spots where that's also true. One, two, or a few rather mature individuals hanging on. Early indeed. Dandelions still here. This beautiful little spring. Willows are barely out. Beautiful coyotes at the beautiful little spring. Under the impression they don't like being out in the middle of the meadows. Seems like a little bit of a stress site for them, but maybe not. Just haven't seen them out in the dry previously. They're on pretty heavy duffs of dense understories from low to high. First, meadowy sarcodes I've run into. In other words, still fighting the chaparral and old burn. Way back up towards Mount Rose is in that next valley straight ahead there. There's I-80 in California. Hopefully trail conditions will be okay. I'm trying to make some time towards the other way back. That'll be the turn back point, more or less. Been fighting the chaparral and the loose slopes since last night when my battle with the snow was over. Thence the chaparral took over. I hope this battle is now done too. Here's my new creek valley. Here's my new track. And here's me still stuck in the chaparral. Quite burned out. For some reason this track is very lightly used. Look at all the loners out there. These were once great stands like we just saw in Genoa Canyon and adjacent areas. When they burn, they become this. Won't be big mature forests again here in my lifetime. But those loners bear testament to what was and what will be back, assuming, maintenance of temperature and precipitation regimes that allow them to return. I see the road continuing quite a distance up there, despite fairly overgrown and a heavily unused aspect. Must be closed from the interstate, I suppose. I can still hear it behind me, the I-80. The road up higher here is an absolute devastation of chaparral. Looks clearer ahead though. I can only hope things improve from this. And a brutal walk up so far. Coming to a new set of systems up ahead. Into the high country again, either way. New road looking a lot better. Pleasantly surprised. It's even tracks. Time to head back up. It looks pretty dead and damaged up there. Lack of snow in some parts. Extensive damage. At this point, into day 2, I'm going to follow this road no matter where it goes, because it goes higher and it goes towards Mount Rose itself, ultimately, in that direction. I know I need to get above the chaparral zone, either way. Road forked. Both of them looked decent. This one's slightly less decent. Hope I don't regret it. They both go the same place. Mount Rose area. And the destination's a little bit south of Mount Rose. Sun slowly got entrenched by the clouds over the course of the day. Started off a pretty sunny morning. Got darker and darker until it disappeared for the last few hours in all this. Yeah, no rainfly or rain jacket. Might have to walk a few hours after dark, which is fine. Done it a million times before. Here's a Jeffrey. It's looking downright ghastly up there. Some aspen forest encroaching on the road. It's already a really tough spot back there with a fallen tree on the road. Gotta hope it keeps it up for 2 miles in some form. Maybe it'll become a footpath at some point. Might be above the worst of the burn now, so just don't want to revisit the chaparral. That would be my nightmare at this point, to revisit the chaparral. I think I'd have to camp right then and there. Pack up when and if it rains either way. Our more mesic higher forests do not burn as easily as lower, drier, hotter forests. So we've got a thriving lodgepole and fir community here. The Arctostaphlos, such on the ground. Maybe even some chinkapins. Closer to 9,000 feet again here. Spring is very early. Collected many plants lower down. I'm expecting very few of the remaining miles in the Sierra, as they'll be all quite high up here. There are cool mountain mists above 10,000 today. Gotta go through some of that area to get back. Things are looking quite stormy just west of here. Can't see the Sierra at all today. Guess I'll be running away from this stuff as I head out towards Pyramid Lake. Got myself into a bind of snow. I am following a trail upwards, gonna top out soon, but I have to get through all the snow piles first. Lightly spritzing at times as well. It's Mount Rose up there, pulling in all the cloud. Be more and more free of her, of Miss Rose, as we head southwards here. It's a few hundred feet more and I may have cleared the worst of the north-facing snow. There's a pass up there. One more snowy pass, fairly low, fairly brief climb, and I'm free of the snowy Sierra. It's such a chilly day. It's so full of snow. You can hear the frogs going nuts out there. Bit of an anomalous scene. It would seem too cold of a day for them. Fog over Mount Rose and visibility and cloud cover are worsening. Glad to have finally found a road down to the area where I'm parked. Just intermittent snow piles up here near 9,500 feet. They must be frigid. I'm amazed at how they survive cold nights out here.